Back, students. Today we're going to be talking about solving inequalities with multiplication and division. So first we're going to talk about the situation in which the number we're going to be multiplying by or dividing by is greater than 0. So that's why we say here C is greater than 0. So when we multiply or divide each side of an inequality by the same positive number, it's going to produce an equivalent inequality. So we see here, just using the numbers, if we've got -6 is less than 8, which is absolutely true. If I then multiply both sides of this by some positive number, in this case 2, -6 times 2 will be -12, 2 times 8 is 16, and we see the same relationship still exists. -12 is less than the 16. Now, algebraically, if A is greater than B and C is some positive number that I'm going to multiply both A and B by, then because A was bigger to begin with, AC is also going to be bigger than BC. Now, that same pattern is going to hold for all of the other inequalities. Now, here's how we use this property. If we are dividing by 8, we can go ahead and multiply both sides of this by 8. Now, because this is a positive 8, everything is going to stay the same. So 8 times x is going to be 8x over 8, and then we just have x. 8 times -5 will be -40, and x is still just going to be greater than -40. The left side is still greater than the right side. Now, in order to show what are all the possible solutions, we create a number line. Then we put a circle on that number line right at -40. We leave the inside of it empty to indicate that we cannot equal the -40. -40 is not a solution. Only the numbers greater than -40 are solutions. So we draw our arrow going off in the greater direction. Now, with this one, we've got 3 times x. Once again, we're going to use division to undo that multiplication. So we divide both sides of this by 3, and then -24 divided by 3 is -8. 3x's divided by 3 leaves us with 1x. So -8 is greater than or equal to x. So in order to show all the possible solutions, we create our number line. We put our dot on the number line. This time it's filled in. It's filled in because we can equal -8. -8 is a solution, along with all the numbers less than that, because x is less than that -8. So we draw our line going towards the left, going in the direction of lower numbers. Now, there is a special situation that we need to be aware of. We've already seen that with addition and subtraction and multiplication and division of positive numbers, the inequality works the exact same way as an equal sign would. The big place where this is going to become different is when the number we multiply by or divide by is a negative number, or in other words, when C, the coefficient, is going to be less than 0. So whenever we multiply or divide each side of an inequality by the same negative number, the direction of the inequality symbol has to be reversed in order to produce an equivalent inequality. So look at the numbers here to see what that means. So here we got -6 is less than 8. Definitely true. Now, this time we're going to multiply by a -2 rather than a +2. Now, as we multiply by this -2, notice what happens. -2 times -6 is going to become a +12, and -2 times the +8 becomes a -16. The number that used to be the lowest, that negative, because we're now multiplying it by another negative, it's going to become positive, and the positives are going to become negatives. This is to say that our smallest numbers are going to become our biggest numbers, and our biggest numbers are going to become the smallest numbers. And because an inequality is there to say which side is bigger, whenever we multiply or divide by a negative, we're going to have to switch it around, because that's exactly what multiplying by a negative does. It makes the big things small and the small things big. Down here in our algebraic description, if A is greater than B and C is less than 0, meaning that it's a negative, and then our AC is going to be less than BC. Or in other words, notice how they just flipped that inequality. When you start multiplying or dividing by some negative number, it's going to force us to flip that inequality and change its direction. All right, so let's see how that works with some examples. We've got y divided by a negative 3. Inverse of dividing by negative 3 is going to be multiply by negative 3. Now, as we do this multiplication, what we're going to have to do is to then flip the inequality. So because we multiplied it by a negative 3, we now get negative 6 is greater than, not less than, is greater than y. Showing our answers, we get the negative 6 on there, put the circle on because we cannot equal it, so it just remains an empty circle. Y is less than the negative 6, so we put our line going in the less than direction. All right, next example, negative 7 times y is less than or equal to negative 35. We need to eliminate the negative 7 because we're multiplying by it. The inverse would be divide. Negative 7 over negative 7 is going to be a positive 1, so we'll just have 1y. Negative 35 divided by negative 7 is going to be positive 5. But because we did that division, because we divided by a negative number, we had to flip the inequality. So now y is greater than or equal to 5. We put a dot on the 5, filled in this time because of the or equals to, the line underneath, and we mark all the numbers that are greater than 5. All right, let's see how this could work in a real-world context. You earn $9.50 per hour at your summer job. We want you to write and solve an inequality that represents the number of hours you need to work to buy a digital camera that costs $247. The first thing we want to focus in on are the variables and all of the factors of this. Okay, so here are our variables. One, we've got the hours worked. This is what we don't know, and this is exactly what the question is asking us to find. How many hours do we need to work to buy that camera? Another important aspect of this is the cost, $247. Our wage is going to play a role. If we make more money, we can do it faster with less hours. If we make less money, it's going to take us longer. Now we need to relate these and find out how wages, hours, and cost are all going to be related. Now that cost is the minimum amount we need to earn. Now if I earn more money than what is required to buy the digital camera, great. I hope to do that. I don't want to spend my entire income on a single item. So that 247 is going to represent a minimum. We're going to want how much money we earn to be greater than the amount we're going to spend. Another thing to pay attention to is how does hours worked and wages relate to our total earnings. Okay, so if I earn $5 an hour and work for 2 hours, that's $10. If I work for 3 hours, great, $15. All we're really doing here is multiplying the hours by the wages. And so this is what that relationship looks like. You've got your wage multiplied by however many hours you work, and this needs to be greater than the cost of what you're going to buy. All right, so now I'm substituting in those values. Our wage was $9.50 an hour, and the cost was $247. In order to solve for H, solve for our hours, We're going to divide both sides by that 9.5. And that gives us that our hours needs to be greater than 26. If you get a word problem, give a word answer. You need to work a minimum of 26 hours in order to buy the digital camera. I hope this helps you. Good luck on your assignment.